This tutorial is going to show you how to get started with Microsoft PowerPoint 2010. When you take a look at the screen that I have in front of me, what you'll notice is that I am right now looking at slides that have a particular orientation, and furthermore, the version that I'm looking at is in landscape mode. When looking at this, if you decide that you want to change the orientation and you want to put it in portrait mode, you have to come to the top, click on the Design tab, and when you look at the group that's labeled as Page Setup, there is a command called Slide Orientation. So what you do is click it. You'll see by default that Landscape has this area around it, and in order to modify it from Landscape to Portrait, click Portrait, and now you'll notice that your portrait presentation has this vertical type of setup to it. So that takes you to Portrait, and if you decided that you wanted to change slide orientation back to Landscape, by clicking Slide Orientation again, select Landscape, and PowerPoint simply puts it back in the default position. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Home tab, and one of the areas that we're going to take a look at right now is just the fact that you can also change the layout for your slide. For example, when you take a look at what I have on the screen, if I decided that I wanted to talk about portrait mode, I can click inside of this area. And this is referred to, this area here, even though it's in a rectangular mode, is referred to as a placeholder. And this placeholder has what we refer to as dotted borders around it. And in particular, a title typically goes in this spot. So what I'm going to do is type this in and say portrait mode. And if I decided that I wanted to add in a little bit of text about it, I could do so. I could say, for instance, and so now, even though I've typed that information into this area, this is referred to as content. Now, what I could do is say, well, I look at this slide, I really want to change it to a different type of setup. So what I'm going to do is think about changing what we refer to as the layout of this particular slide. So if you take a look, make sure you're on the Home tab. When you look inside of the Slides area, click on the command that says Layout. And what's pretty neat about it is that if I were to click on Title Slide, instantly the information that I have in the slide remains, but it adjusts itself based on the selection I just made. If I wanted to click on Layout again, I can change it to Title and Content. And by doing that, my slide looks like it did a few minutes ago because the title shows up in this particular placeholder and the content information shows up in this placeholder. If I were to go back and click on Layout again, I could select Section Heading. And this particular section header actually lets you see how it's broken up into two parts. And again, PowerPoint makes this very easy because it takes the content that you have in the slide and it adjusts it based on the template that you choose for the layout. I'm going to also click on To Content. To Content lets you have your title, and on one side you can have either text as well as images, or you could basically say, okay, give me a title here, text here, and then on the right side you get the opportunity to see that you can insert a table, you can add a chart, you can add in the Smart Art graphic. Take a look so that you can also insert pictures, and it gives you the opportunity to add clip art, which is really free artwork that's going to come from Microsoft. And then it lets you also add in media clips, and that can be a variety of sound or videos. So when you're looking at this, you have the ability to change that. Furthermore, if you look at this area, you can also put two slides side by side, and with that you can again get the title. You can add a header for this particular placeholder that's beneath it, and do the same thing for the right side. Take a look over to Layout again. If you decided that you only wanted to have a title on this slide, you don't have to have this particular content like I have. For instance, typically it wouldn't even be there. It would look something like that. And the only thing that would be on the slide would just be a title. Some people do this because they decide that they want to add in their own information in the middle, or it could be that they want to just leave it blank. In this case, what I'm going to do is bring that information back by clicking on Undo up here at the top. And I'm going to change my layout again. And this time I just want a blank slide. But because I automatically have information that's present, it doesn't show it as blank. So what I'm going to do is click, and for instance, I'm going to get rid of the title and select Delete. I'm going to click on this particular placeholder, and I'm going to click on the border and hit Delete. And this is what you would normally get if you selected the blank layout. Again, I want to keep my content, so I'm going to press Undo once. It brings the first piece of information back, and I'll click it one more time, and I'll notice that the information that I had before has returned. So now I'm going to click on Layout again, and you'll notice that we have two more. So this time I want to show content, but I want to have a caption for an image that I may decide to add in a little bit later on. So in this instance, I can see that I can add that information here. And then the last part of the layout is to go back and click on the Layout command again. And now I can select Picture with Caption, and now you can notice that you can add in that caption for that particular image itself. So there you have it. That's how you can go in and get started with the layout alone and be able to change the look of the basic templates that are selected by default when you initially open PowerPoint. And most of the time people go back to layout, and typically they stay with the title and the content slide, because a lot of times they just want to add a title and they want to go in and pretty much type in their content. So that's the area that you would go in and you would change that for. Now, what I'm also going to take a look at right now is the right side, because here you'll notice that you get the scroll bar, and actually you can left click on that scroll bar and push it up, or left click and pull it down. When you release it, you'll notice that it actually navigates through each of those slides. A better option might be to just click on this triangle to just navigate or move from one slide to the next, depending on the direction you want to go in. And you also have the ability to do the same down here. Something that will allow you to move more quickly, especially when you add additional slides onto your screen. For instance, what I'm going to do is just quickly add in another slide. So for instance, if I just click on New Slide, it adds in another slide, which is obviously blank. And then when I look over here on the right, I'll be able to see that I can go from one slide to the next. So if I want to go to the slide before number 3, I click on Previous Slide. And if I want to go to the one that's below slide number 2, I will select Next Slide. So it lets you quickly navigate using these particular scroll bars, as well as these commands that are over on the right side of the screen. Now, in the view that we're in right now, you'll notice that this is normal view. And you know that because in this area towards the bottom, it clearly says normal. But if you wanted to rearrange your slides, you have the ability to come in and highlight Slide Sorter. So when I click it, I can now have a miniature view of my slides, and furthermore, I can left click slide number 1 and move it to position number 2, which is indicated by the vertical line that you see on the middle of your screen. When you release slide number 1, it now assumes position number 2, and both of them have actually switched places based on what we're seeing right here. And so in order to go back to the normal view, just come back to the bottom and select normal, and you'll notice that the order that was modified in the slide sorter view has been maintained. Now, if you wanted to stay in this screen, and if you wanted to look at slides in this area, you can also switch places or sort your slides here. So you would left click number 1, and when you start to move it, you can see this faint line that's horizontal above number 1. When I release my mouse, it has actually moved it to that particular position. So that is an option that you do have. And if you were to take a look at your screen and you decided to look at this in what we call Slideshow Mode, we can come over here and highlight Slideshow. And now we can move from one slide to the next by easily pressing the Enter button, and it lets you move from one slide to the next. You can also press the up arrow key on your keyboard as well as the down arrow key on your keyboard, which also lets you navigate from slide to slide. In this instance, I also want to press the Escape key because I want to return to my normal view. And that's how you're able to do that. Now, when you're looking at this area, you also have towards the bottom what is called the status bar. And on the status bar, you can notice on the left side that you can see that if I select slide number 1, I can see that I am on that number slide out of the total number of slides in the presentation itself, which in this case is I'm on slide number 1 out of the total of 3 slides. Furthermore, if I'm looking at the theme based on the design that I have for this presentation, for example, when I came up and I selected design, when you hover over a particular theme, you'll see that it gives you that name. So if I wanted to change it to this theme, if I selected angles, down on the status bar, angles is actually labeled in that particular area. So what I want to do is go back to what I had before, and I'm going to leave that like it was, and I'm going to move back from the Design tab over to the Home tab. And with that being stated, there is another area that's rather essential that some speakers use when they want to use this area sometimes as a talking point. So if I want to click and add a note to myself, I might decide to type in something that says, introduce myself to the audience. And so that's just a reminder for me. And those are just notes that you're able to add so that it helps to improve the quality of the presentation that you would like to do. Now, based on what we see on the left, this is not the area. For example, when you're looking at slides over to the left, this is not the area that you would use to edit your slides. It lets you select the slide that you would like to go to. If you want to edit your slide, I recommend that you click over here on the right, and you have the ability to erase some of the information, and you can go back and type in whatever it is that you desire. The second thing is, if you just want to see only the text for your slides and not the images, select the outline mode, because this gives you the ability to click over on the right, click over on the left on this side. For instance, I could say landscape mode. And when I press enter, I can hit the tab key, which allows me to get the bullets showing in that particular right side for the larger area. And in this case, I can say something like, and the neat thing is the data that you type on the left side of your screen again shows on the right side, and obviously if you click on the slides area on this side, you can then see that information being presented over to the right. That concludes how to get started using PowerPoint.